Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, February 26th. Derek VanRiper, Sarris, and Trevor May here with you on this episode. We dig into some things we're watching. Now that spring games are underway, we're already seeing some pretty big changes with the Washington Nationals that have caught our eye. But we'll dig into some other things like a day in the life of a big leaguer in spring training. How exciting is it to be in the big leagues this time of year, trying to make your way from the end of February to opening day in late March? We got some baseball news you should know as well. Let's get started with this one, Trevor. Max Scherzer is back. He is re-upped with the Blue Jays. It's a one-year deal, $3 million guaranteed, up to $10 million in incentives. So looking at the depth they have right now, thinking about the timelines that Max might have been on to contribute this year anyway, kind of seems like this is more for later than for anything at the beginning of the season. And as you were pointing out before the show, the value might be more than just the innings that Max Scherzer eventually gives this team.
First of all, I like it. It seems like it was a place he really liked to be. He liked the group. He likes the young guys that he got to kind of work with and be around. So, but when you see a deal like this where it's so incentives based, it's for a veteran, that's in his 40s. Max is definitely past the prime and definitely getting closer to when the day is that he's going to hang him up. So it feels like these have gone the way of things that go away. Couldn't even think of a metaphor on the top of my head, but it's going the way of a player coach. Like this used to be really common, especially like in the minor leagues where you'd have a Bull Durham, Crash Davis situation going. But like in the big leagues, if you do it, you can make $3 million. So, it's not like he's not going to contribute to this team, but I think that him coming back, having zero, injuries and just throwing a huge bulk of innings would be a wild additional value than what he's being paid. I think the assumption is it's going to take him a while to get going. It's a depth thing, and just having you as a person that's around that is able to be a part of the staff, and even from a development standpoint and helping competitiveness and all that kind of stuff. Just like there are such things as getting paid for that value, especially when you're a Hall of Famer. So like the added bonus though is going to be it's shifting a little bit to on the mound. The added bonus is the mound, and the real value that you're getting no matter what is going to be what you add as with your experience.
He had 43 innings in 2024, 85 last year. I'd expect, like maybe 60 innings. There's some secondary questions floating around the socials about what this means for Trey Savage and what kind of an innings total he'll have this year. Trey Savage last year had 112 innings plus the postseason, which was another 27 innings. So he got up to 139, 140 innings. You traditionally think he could get to 160, which is almost an entire season. But maybe they want to save another 25 innings for the postseason, in which case you might only throw your Savage for 120 innings during the regular season. There's a board I have later that has Jose Barrios on it in a bad way, 85 stuff plus in his first start. So maybe they just saw that start and said, we thought we might have to use Barrios for a fair amount of innings this year. Maybe we don't want to as much as we thought we did. I do think on opening day it's Cease, Gausman, Savage, Ponce, and Barrios, I guess, for now.
Or Barrios. I mean,
Lauer.
They still have, if all those guys are healthy, that's even with Shane Bieber going to the IL to start the season, they have 6 viable starters. If they wanted to limit the innings, they could go to a 6-man at various points during the season. And again, that assumes health for this group as a whole. So interesting to see Max back in Toronto. Like the fit, but I think you guys have it nailed down as far as it being a lower volume of innings expected from him.
Would you expect to see Scherzer or Bieber first?
I have no idea. It's coin flip. Honestly, it's very close, I think.
Yeah, because Scherzer, even if Scherzer was just building up from relative nothing right now, it's only February 26th. I mean, 6 weeks seems like enough time for him to be good to go. Bieber's coming back from an arm injury. I would imagine they would slow play Bieber a little bit more. So I guess we could see Scherzer first.
Possibly.
But it really is more of a let's just get there. Let's get through the regular season and try to have our most important arms healthy later in the year, sort of depth play at this point.
Ponce is like, there's people that are into Ponce this year, but, there is if everyone's healthy, and he's not pitching that well, he could go to the pen and Scherzer starts. So it's just something to think about. There's one more guy that might take innings in that rotation.
Last thought on it. Do you think a 6-man rotation actually does suit this team, given how deep they played into October last year and thinking about the collective, injury risk and age and inexperience kind of mixed around this rotation? Does it actually make sense in this case? Because they're not taking the ball away from a top 5 or top 10 starter if they choose that, the way some other teams are ultimately kind of dinging themselves. Like if the Tigers use a 6-man rotation, that's dumb because that's less for Skubal, right? But if the Jays do it, it might actually be relatively smart given the top end of their rotation.
Can a 7-man bullpen? Can you handle that too? Like that's a big thing. That's one thing that in my years in baseball gets kind of flippantly thrown out a lot. And the difference between having 7 and 8, like it's not thought about very often. But the difference between one guy in the bullpen is can be massive, especially if you have like a group of your leverage guys that are constantly pitching. You gotta. It depends on how much your team's scoring too. Like that, there's a lot of effects on having a 7-man bullpen. How that could be disastrous if you commit to it. So it's like one of those things where you don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to for the 6-man. If you're doing it just to squeeze Scherzer in, I don't think that's worth it.
Could the combination of an Eric Lauer and Tyler Rogers make it viable, though, with the fact that Rogers is kind of a rubber arm? He throws, 87. He throws 70 innings a year. And the fact that Eric Lauer could be your sop-up guy where he can go 3 innings for you and save the bullpen on a certain game. I don't know. That could be the type of bullpen that could maybe handle 7. But I think that's an underrated part of it. We give out the 6-man rotation more often than it actually happens.
You also need to have enough options, like actual minor league options, for guys that are part of your bullpen mix to rotate guys in. If you're going to go shorter on the actual roster, then you have to expand the roster by shuttling guys up and down between AAA and the bigs.
You also can't run the, we're afraid of the third time around the order if you're going to have 6 starters. You just, they have to be, it's great if everyone's throwing 5 2/3 and average is 6. It's great. But if everyone's throwing 5 flat, you can't do that with that many. Like you're covering one more inning every single game and you have one less pitcher. Like that can't. So it really depends on what you're getting out of those starters. But if we have a 6 starter and it's Max Scherzer and he's throwing 4 1/3 every time, like that's defeating the purpose of having the 6 starter at that point.
Still looks like insurance at this point. A couple other news items to get to. Merrill Kelly out for opening day with a back injury. He had an MRI, which revealed no structural damage, so ultimately may just be a brief absence for him to begin the season. We'll have to see where things go when he's able to resume throwing, but we've already had a lot of concerns about that Arizona rotation not having enough quality in it, so any sort of absence for Kelly could be pretty costly for them as they try and make their way back into the postseason. I did see an update. Brandon Woodruff, a frequent topic of conversation lately, now on track to begin the season in the rotation, which to me is a clever way of saying he's not going to be ready for opening day necessarily, but he's not necessarily opening the year on the IL, right? There is a subtle difference there, and the schedule could also allow you to play a little bit more in terms of games with how you phrase that as well.
I also think it points to like how much we're hanging on the every word of managers and pitchers right now, and it's not even March yet. So, if we keep up this level of energy, it's going to be really exhausting. Like we're out here reporting velocity increases for guys who went out and pitched 9 innings. I'm going to give you a spring stuff plus leaderboard for guys who pitched 9 pitches. And, one guy on there had 9 pitches. Are we worried about Zach Gallen's 86 stuff plus and his 9 pitches in his first outing? It's just, it's the nature of the beast, and we're here to give you the best reporting we can. But, some of this is just going to work itself out. I think that you have to think probabilistically, and you have to think, I don't think Brandon Woodruff is going to give you 170 innings this year. And so that can sort of take some of the stress out of hearing some of these updates. It's like, okay, does he start his first start on, April 4th or April 10th? Like, I'm still expecting like 130 innings out of him.
It comes back to me like to this micro information, like not changing a lot about our macro expectations. Like we have projections. We spent the entire offseason assessing risk, thinking about all the scenarios, and as some of those scenarios play out, the blow-by-blow updates don't actually change the big picture because they were already accounted for in many instances. This, to me, kind of fits into that bucket. It's sort of like the Dodgers projections. Oh, Shohei might be slow played through the spring. River Ryan's going to get some starts if he's feeling good. Like all stuff that we actually had thought about previously. It's just now it's being thrown at us on a day-to-day sort of basis because reporters are asking questions and the person on the other side has to answer the question with something.
What is our over-under on, like, just because you said it, the over-under on Shohei's innings? Because I was having a disagreement with Nick Pollock on our pod yesterday where he thought they'll just pitch, Shohei and he'll get to like 160, 170 innings because, he wants to win a Cy Young and they're just going to do that. And I was like, I think it's going to be more like 120, 130 innings and they want him healthy for the postseason. And he's going to say he wants to win the Cy Young, but, that's not going to be what the Dodgers care about.
What do you think, Trevor?
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, who knows with the Dodgers? I bet you they're always going to lean towards the 120, 130, the health, especially like what are we trying to win the Cy Young and the MVP in the same year? Like, what do you want? Because you do, like, at some point you're a two-way player, yes, but like there has to be you have to be a little leaning one way or the other a little bit more.
And you have to take some days off, dude. It's
it's
exhausting doing both of those. Yeah.
There's just too much. And they are, if anyone is dialed in on that stuff, it's the Dodgers. Like we've been very, obviously they haven't been, or at least Friedman hasn't been just like direct about it, but like they've pretty subtle, not so subtly insinuated that like, yeah, guys can stay hurt for a lot longer here than they can other places. Because at the end of the day, we're going to make the playoffs and then we're going to go for a run. Like that's the way that this works. And guess I know people don't like to hear that, but like that kind of, we expanded the playoffs. There's 12 teams to make it. Kind of a good plan. So if you guys think they're going to win 115 games, they have no interest in winning 150 games regular season. Like if it means they have to win 95, they're going to win 95 or 93 like they did last year. They have to do that, and that's how it plays out because a lot of guys got hurt. So that's the way it plays out. But like getting in the 90s is the goal, not winning the most games ever.
So to the Shohei workload question, if the goal is to win the NL MVP and the NL Cy Young, if you look back at recent Cy Young winners in the NL, Corbin Burns in 2021, 167 innings. Chris Sale in 2024, 177 and 2/3. I think that's probably the lower end range of what you still need to get to, even though that threshold is lower now than it used to be. I mean, that's just the way the game has changed. Is that actually in a reasonable range of outcomes for Shohei? Is 167 actually something they would let him do in the regular season?
He's never done that.
No.
I mean, I'm picking the nits. He had 166. And
oh, come on, man.
That's funny.
What's the second highest total, too? Just throw those out there.
130. 130.
That's the gap
so,
right now?
Yeah. So I think the 132 he put up in 2023, the 130 he put up in 2021, that's where I think he'll land.
I think that matters to him, though. I think there is some part of Shohei that wants to post like a typical starter or close to a typical modern starter over a full season. It's like the one thing he hasn't done yet.
Yeah, he only has 528 career innings as a pitcher.
Yeah, he wants to have obviously he's probably not like trying to throw 3,500 innings out here for his career, but like, it'd be nice to have 1,500 or between 1,500 and 2,000. Like that's a real pitcher's workload. That's a starting pitcher's workload. So I bet you he's cognizant of that, and he's not 24 anymore. So putting together like seeing what the ceiling is as a pitcher, I think is what we're talking about here, because he's seen the ceiling as a bit. I mean, we get it. You're an MVP DH, like you did it. So like maybe that it's weird to say, but maybe it's like, this is his world. We're all just living in it. Like he's just like this year, I'm a pitcher. And then that's just what I'm going to win that. And then if I win the other thing, great. But like, if not, I'll sacrifice that ability. But like, again, you're right. The Dodgers are like, how about, we have Yoshi Yamamoto and Snell. We're good. Do we just, but like,
take your time.
Who knows? Who knows? That conversation happens, I'm sure.
He has some agency in it. Is I think what you're pointing out. He's got some ability to do what he wants.
He's like, hey guys, I deferred 99% of my
contract
for you. You should do whatever I want. Also, Japan, and they're like, okay, all right, yeah,
right.
We bought the Lakers because of you. This is great. So I think that maybe they just like go, hey, my goal is the 165, and then we'll just like if we have to shave and shave
off
and shave,
of that.
Great. But if everything works out perfectly, then it's conceivably possible. That I think is the most likely. They're like, hey, everything's good. You're feeling great. Like we're getting no warning signs, which almost never happens. But if there isn't, then you just do it, keep going, and we'll just let you pitch, and then just play it by ear. That's probably what's going to happen. But I think it'll end up being about 130, 135 probably.
Right, 130 is kind of where my head's at for a projection. I'd feel okay about that. The quality of those innings will be really high. If Shohei is 2 players in your fantasy league, pitcher-only Shohei is still very valuable, but one that you're going to have to account for some random absences for. I also think it might be hard to predict it. There could just be a point where in a weekly league, Shohei's day is coming up to start in a couple of days, and they announce after your lineups have locked, Shohei's not going to pitch. He's feeling a little something. He's strained something running the bases, so he's going to skip a start, right? So I think that's going to be the frustrating part.
The Dodgers are notorious for that. I've tried to follow along their starts and be like, oh crap,
madness, just madness. Let's cut through some of the noise, though. What actually matters? Spring games are actually happening. We saw a tweet from our buddy Lance Brazdowski pointing out that the Nationals have already cut their fastball usage in the early days of spring games, going from a team that leaned very heavily on fastballs last year to one that is no longer doing that, kind of following what the Red Sox are doing, which makes sense. Paul Taboni going there from Boston, kind of implementing that. And I think it's interesting just because when we talked about the Nats on the team preview, it's not a depth chart loaded with talent. It's not a bunch of guys that we're looking at right now and expecting big breakouts from. But if step one is just making the guys you have in the org a little bit better with the stuff they already have, it seems like the Nats are intent on quickly checking that box based on how quickly they've started to make this adjustment.
Fewest fastballs this spring. If you're looking on YouTube, you'll see the fewest fastballs this spring. Absent from this list are the Red Sox. And in a true copycat fashion, on top of this list are the Mets, Rays, and Marlins, with the Cardinals having the 4th fewest fastballs. So they're making changes quickly as well. The Braves, Orioles, Dodgers, Nationals, and Rangers are the top or the bottom 10 of the fastball usage chart here. And I think it's pretty interesting because there's a lot of progressive pitching organizations in here. The Braves are run by Mike Fast. Mike Fast, who was a big part of the architecture of the Astros' rise to fame. Orioles also from the Astros analytics tree, Marlins from the Rays analytics tree, and the Rays themselves in second. Mets having, put all this money into their pitching development program, having the fewest fastballs in the big leagues this spring is interesting. And then you have the Nationals and Marlins kind of, and Rangers kind of changing what they're doing to fit. I would say that the Red Sox were dialing down the fastball usage for their pitchers that didn't have good fastballs. And then if you look at what they've done since is they've acquired pitchers with good fastballs. I mean, the whole getting Oviedo, his best pitch is his fastball. Totally, his best pitch is a fastball. There's a lot of better fastballs. You're not going to tell Ranger Suarez to throw fewer sinkers. That's like his money pitch to some extent, right? So it's funny that the Red Sox might have started this trend to some extent and now are going in the other direction already.
Yeah, it comes down to the best organizations, and it would blow people's mind how there's still some major league organizations that don't approach things from the start this way. But it looks like the Nationals finally said, okay, our philosophy is throw your best pitches more, and then we'll go from there. So, like, instead of the old school, like, establish the fastball down and away first, regardless of what your fastball is. Now, that is important. Like, using your fastball effectively is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, in Major League Baseball for longevity, for playing for a long time, and being good at any high elite level. Like, you have to use your fastball. But if you don't have anything else, or you're not confident in anything else, it doesn't matter, because it's going to get lit up. So I look at guys like Jake Irvin, and like guys with conceivably on paper or in a vacuum, good like metrics, good shapes, like good thing. There's stuff there. It's just maybe their decisions aren't very good, or it seems like everyone's just kind of like, this is how you're supposed to pitch, right? And they've been doing that for a few years, to the point where the guys just weren't throwing their best stuff very much. So I think this is just an indicator. Obviously, it's early. There's not been that many games, but like, it's just like, guys, we're throwing our best pitches, and you're doing it from the first day of spring training. We're changing this philosophy now. That's a good sign. That, I mean, I don't know how it's going to pan out and how it's going to work with this group of guys, but at least that change is something that we didn't see there yet. At least it didn't manifest on the field at all. Like, it was hard to tell if that's what was being said. There's still some organizations that don't say throw your best pitches first. Let's figure out what those are and throw those more, get feedback, and then adjust. Like, there's still some organizations that don't explicitly approach it that way, and that's kind of the best. You mentioned the Mets. They just said, okay, we're doing this now, and then suddenly, like, they started getting their guys optimized really well. They're very good at developing pitches. Everyone's optimized. Everyone's got, if they throw a ride fastball, it's an elite ride fastball. If they throw a curveball, it's got crazy depth. If they throw a sweeper, it's got some of the most sweep. Like, they're very good at designing pitches, but they're like, cool, we designed them. Now we have to pick which ones are the best, operate the best, and then work from those and use your fastballs effectively. That's why they got good so fast. So hopefully this is an example, or this is an indicator of the Nationals doing the same thing.
I think also what's really interesting is that these numbers are coalescing around 40%. I mean, the Mets are last at 38.9%. The Nationals are at 43.3%. So 40% is interesting because I put two pitch types here together. It's four seamers and sinkers. And the average starting pitcher right now is around 5 pitches. That's gone up. It used to be closer to 4, and now it's going past 5. So if you think about it, I put two pitch types on here, and they're 40%. If you had 5 pitch types, that's what you'd expect. You'd expect 40% out of 2, you know? So, like, I think that there is something going towards, like, you know, hey, let's identify your 5 best pitches, and then let's throw them any count, anytime, you know, let's be a random number generator to some extent, so that the hitter is never like, oh, yeah, here comes, like, never has that Trevor May, like, oh, 2/3 of the time and in 2-0 counts, he does this, you know, that doesn't have anything they can circle. So it seems like that's not an accident that they've coalesced around 40% for 2 pitch types.
Right. And if you didn't have 5 pitches, if you only had 4, getting as close to 25-25, 25-25 might be ideal. I think the example that I'm thinking about right now, since we're talking about the Nats, is Brad Lord. And I'm looking at the stuff numbers. 109 stuff on the slider. He threw that 20% of the time last year. Everything else is below an 85. He threw his 4-seamer, which had a 79 stuff plus number, 48% of the time. Through his sinker, which has an 83, 18% of the time. So he's 66% fastballs last year that are not good fastballs by the model, right? It also throws a changeup 13% of the time. It's also not very good at 84 stuff number. But he's got command. Location Plus has him down as a 102. So that kind of makes it interesting. If you start dialing back the fastball, you probably have to figure out how much can you push the slider before it becomes less effective. And then what else can you possibly add, either the 5th pitch or what other thing can you live with in that arsenal? So I don't think that this sort of adjustment with a guy like Brad Lord makes him a 3.5 ERA. He's the Nats all-star this season and unlocks everything. But I do think it gives him a path to beat the projections or be a little bit better than he was last year, right? If you can move him from a 4.34 and a 129 whip down to a 3.8, 3.9 and a 1.25 whip, that's progress. That's something. You made a guy better. And if your organization can make guys like that better, imagine what you're going to do when you are able to optimize stuff more effectively, draft, scout, and trade for stuff more effectively, right? So it just seems like the first step of many heading in the right direction for this org.
think if I was coaching Brad Lord, I'd be like, can we throw a cutter in there and, kind of go 30-30-30 on these bad fastballs? I mean,
right. And I think we've talked about this in the past, right? The downside, if the slider is your best pitch and you add a cutter, depending on how your slider actually works.
Yeah, but I was looking at it. It's an 85 mile an hour slider. So
yeah, it's not like a gyro or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd be like, you can spin a slider. Let's look at what you can do with the cutter. Even if it's not the most amazing thing, now you got 3 different fastball shapes. Let's dial all these fastballs down to 15-20% usage, and then the rest are all sliders. Might be what I said, Lord. Like, it's not 5 pitch types, but it's, you're spamming the fastballs so that they can't get comfortable with any one fastball shape.
Did you see anything compelling when you looked at the spring Stuff Plus leaderboard, even though for some guys, as you mentioned, it's like 9 pitches so far because they breezed through an inning and that's all we got to see?
Well, one of the nice things about the early Stuff Plus leaderboard is that the guys at the top have actually thrown 30 or 40 pitches. So that's a decent amount for Stuff Plus. I know later on I'll show you a leaderboard with, like I said, Zach Gallen's 9 pitches. I don't know why he threw 9 pitches. That's a very small amount, but I guess he maybe just got through the inning real fast. But these guys have all thrown 40, 50 pitches, and that's a good sample for Stuff Plus, actually. And so Jose Soriano's at the top. It's not too surprising, though, because Soriano's been a Stuff Plus darling. And, the real question behind him is what that defense is going to look like. Since he's such a ground ball guy, he would be much better on, the Cubs or something. But on the Angels, you're just like, are they all going to give him a 140 whip again by booting every ground ball? Second is Chris Sale, not a surprise. Third is Chase Dollander, who has been a big discussion point on the Discord because there's been a lot of debate about whether or not he should be a late pick and he's interesting away from home. I think he could be usable away from home. Clay Holmes is fourth. Another guy who's a Stuff Plus darling that needs his defense behind him. I also saw the news that Francisco Lindor got the stitches out. And seems to be on track for opening day. So that's relevant for Clay Holmes here. Ryan Weathers wowed everybody on the socials in his debut yesterday. He was up a tick and a half. He was sitting like 97 plus. All his pitches looked really nasty. He is 5th in spring Stuff Plus, but Will Warren was tied with him. I found that interesting. Matthew Liberatore, who is put on weight and is throwing a new changeup, had a 120 Stuff Plus. He's also dialing down the fastball usage, as the Cardinals are, as you saw from the last leaderboard. I have so many shares of Matthew Liberatore. Jack Leiter's there, Tarek Skubal's there, and then surprise entry Blade Tidwell, where he's always been a guy that Stuff Plus loves. It's really about the command. But Carson Wisenhunt is on my notables list that you'll see in a little bit, and he just could not locate his new stuff. Wisenhunt is up 2 ticks, and he's throwing a new cutter, and he just could not locate any of it. So Tidwell might actually be the 6th starter in San Francisco, which will probably get some heavy use this year.
It's probably going to start popping for draft and holds if that holds up for Blade Tidwell. But I think we want everything to mean something this time of year, and some things mean nothing. I think that's the nature of the beast. But I do think when we're looking for things that are changing, Tidwell is like the kind of guy you want to watch in spring training. Mick Abel's the kind of guy you want to watch in spring training. Inexperienced players, pitchers specifically, just to see how much the stuff is ticked up. Because you might see more velocity, you might see more ride, you might see a new pitch, and it might be something that unlocks everything. And I think part of it with pitching, too, is there's so much attrition with injuries over the course of the spring and over the course of the season. Opportunities change really quickly. Being 6th, 7th, or 8th on the starting pitcher depth chart in February, that's close enough to be a starter when the season begins if a couple of injuries hit over the final weeks of spring training. So I'm curious, of the younger pitchers that we're getting looks at early on in the spring, who has caught your guys' eye so far? Is anybody you've been watching closely so far, Trevor?
Well, a guy that I'm going to consistently try to monitor is Mick Abel. I've been high on him since he made his debut with the Phillies. I think there's just a lot there, and he just seems like a guy who's got pitchability and is willing to he picks things up and tries a lot of things, and also his demeanor. So I liked the Twins trade for him. At least I liked that they got him in the trade, and that he was a recharge, not just a throwaway guy. He is one of those take the next step candidates, in my opinion. But I will also throw another Twin out there with Taj Bradley. Like these guys have now, well, not with the exception of McCable's not as long as Taj, but I think that especially with the Joe Ryan and the Pablo Lopez going down, like they're going to be asked to do a lot, and they have an opportunity to kind of step into that role. And I think we've been talking about their stuff for a while. So like they are Twins guys, but I think they were part of the pickups of the absolute decimation of that team, and they're going to need to pan out. So that there's a reason that from that standpoint to watch them, but also just I think metrically we've looked at them. We're saying there's stuff here. There's a click to be had somewhere in both of these guys, and the way that Pete Mackey and everyone over there has developed pitching, like they usually have guys click, like the guys click. Joe Ryan is a great example. So it'll be interesting to see how they if they take that next step with a team that's, I mean, if you go look at their lineup, you're like Byron Buxton, and we'll see what else is gonna happen but there's a lot of opportunity. That's what I'm trying to say, and I think those two guys have pretty high ceilings. I want to see if they can get closer to reaching them.
Yeah, I love players where the role is there for them, and they've established that they're major leaguers, and now there's kind of a question of what your major league role will be going forward. I talked about like Kyle Leahy in this way, before that, he's established that he's a reliever, but now he has the chance to be a starter, and that'll change his entire, trajectory in terms of, personal monetary, remuneration, but also just what his role is on the team. So he is really motivated, and he also has a floor. I think that way about Taj Bradley. Taj Bradley has proven that he's a major league pitcher. The question is what his role is going to be. I put him in the bullpen a couple times because, I'm worried about the command and the size of the arsenal and stuff like that. But this could be, he admits this is a really important time. He pulled out of the WBC saying, I'm sorry, this year is too important to me. This is my year. One thing I'd like to see also is that Taj Bradley's throwing a new sinker. So I don't know that that'll change everything, but it is interesting to say, hey, you know what? People have been sitting on your four-seam middle. What if you just threw a two-seam, to the same spot that just had different movement? Now you might break some bats. You might, move off the barrel. So I'm interested in Taj Bradley and Kyle Leahy. I'm interested in Hunter Barco because he's fighting for that fifth role. There's that opportunity is sitting there for him while Jared Jones is out. They brought in Jose Urquidy, but Hunter Barco is the guy that has better stuff. And this spring, he's throwing a four-seam, a cutter, and a splitter that are all rate really well by the model. And he's got every reason to just fight as hard as he can for this fifth role. And it'll be meaningful, Taj Bradley makes it, that's a starter that's shown he can strike guys out, has that stuff. If Barco makes it, he's got this nice, it's like Kyle Leahy. He's got this nice home park. If you're talking about fantasy, at very least, he should be a guy you can lose half the time, And so those are the kinds of guys where there's some floor here. I like to have some floor. I've learned some lessons from like my Osvaldo Bido days where it's like, that was a late pick. I'm not apologizing for it. That was a real deep kind of sleeper type. But if I pick my deep sleepers from guys who have high floors, then the very worst situation is like Landon Rupp last year. That's a guy who, he maybe didn't hit the ceiling. And so some people thought, that was a bad call. I don't apologize for Landon Rupp at all. Like that ended up being a major league starting pitcher that was very useful at home and somewhat useful on the road, and could even grow this year and be another level. So I'm starting to pick my sleepers with some aspect of floor to it, because that floor often is opportunity, role, innings, and picking a guy that, I like J.R. Ritchie and I'm watching him, and there is an opportunity for him there in that Braves rotation. but he has options. He's a young guy. If they decide to go with Bryce Elder, to finish that rotation, he may not give you much at all this year. So as much as I like J.R. Ritchie, I'm kind of watching the guys who are fighting for a fifth role or in the rotation and may take another step.
I was looking at the Taj Bradley pitch mix just from his spring start. I didn't get to watch that one as it happened, but four-seamer, cutter, curveball, splitter, it in some ways looks kind of similar, at least on paper, to what we've seen in the past. I think what we've talked about in previous conversations with Taj Bradley is that everything other than that curveball is thrown hard. So I wonder if upping that curveball usage is ultimately going to be something he has to do if he's going to change a lot of things about his big league fortunes with the Twins this year. He threw it 15% of the time, I think that was 21% of the time in the spring debut, up from 15% last year. So a slight nudge up, but is that enough? Like, how much more does he have to work with that pitch in order for it to get away from some of the problems and everything being in the same velocity band that we've talked about in the past, Trevor?
It really depends, I think, and specifically with him, that is his work. He has terrible command of his curveball. Like, it's been really, really bad in his career, and that's the biggest reason he's been prevented from throwing it a lot. So that is going to determine his usage more than anything, because if you're dotting curveballs top of the zone, which Eno has already written about how it's going away. So like you're not gonna get those as much either. But like, you have to be able to locate your curveball in and out and keep it down at the bottom of the zone. If you're not able to do that, it doesn't matter how much you throw it. And I think that's what he's struggling with the usage. So, but let's say he improves his ability to command it to at least a around average level, as opposed to scattering it all over the place. Like, getting that into the 20s and keeping it there is probably likely a way to at least change up the velocity ranges that he's stuck in. But at the same time, curveballs tend to look a lot different, and they tend to be a lot slower. And it's not a great pitch for solving that problem, frankly. Slowing down the splitter or something, or throwing a seam shifter instead of a splitter, or whatever it is. He needs something that is just a little bit of a bigger profile, gyro slider. He just struggles to do it. So like, everything's 90 plus except for the curveball, but the curveball tends to shape. It's the hardest to tunnel for most guys. It pops more often, and so I think that's what he's struggling with. It's not a great option for that. So maybe there's a grip change, or maybe there is a different style of pitch that he can throw that will allow him to do it, kind of like in the Skeens model, right? Skeens throws a splinter and a changeup and I know he's messed with an actual splitter a little bit. Like, it's because he wants to fill in all these different velocity changes. It's not about the shapes as much as it's about like having this really wide range velocity, because he's a really hard thrower and everything he throws is hard. So like, he solved that problem. So that maybe take a page out of that book, or throw a sweeper. Maybe he's really struggled to do it. But at this point, like, the movement doesn't matter as much as the being able to get guys timing off enough where movement's not doing the job, because his command just isn't great. He stays in the middle zone a lot. He hasn't developed that. That might improve things moving forward, but like, in the meantime, we gotta find something that works better in that way.
I think the other thing that might be available to him, which is why I brought up the sinker. I only throw two of them, but like, the other thing you can do if you can't like have a big velo band, and if these are not tunneling that well, is just spam the hard stuff and have different hard stuff. So like, my example is Chad Patrick. So Chad Patrick, 95% of what he throws is between 89 and 94. Why does it work for Chad Patrick? Because there's a bunch of different shapes in there. There's a four seam, there's a cutter, there's a sinker, And with Taj Bradley, he could do it with the splitter, the sinker, and the four seam. And he does he has thrown a cutter in the past. So like, I might be like, hey, if we can't, do a bunch of different velos, could we just do a bunch of different shapes in this velo band? So there's a couple ways forward for him. I watched it. He was nice and firm. He was, 96 at 96. I thought he looked pretty good command-wise. But the hard thing about Taj is you'll watch him sometimes and be like, this guy's great. And then you'll watch him another time and be like, what is happening?
command. It's bullpen command. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful sort of way, but just by the model numbers, like that's guys that have command like that end up in the bullpen. So the command has to get better. And it seems like if you're going to throw the four-seamer, sinker, cutter, like the spam fastball approach, my thought with Chad Patrick is his command, I think, is actually good. I think you need good command to get away with that sort of game plan. So that might be the thing that holds Taj back, too. If he can't command all three of those fastballs effectively, then it still doesn't have the effect you're looking for. Some other stuff we're watching this spring, our buddy Jason Collette has written about this before, the stolen base tendencies. Keeping an eye on that, figuring out who's going to run more. And there were some interesting stories out recently. Antoine Richardson, we've talked about in the show, making the move to Atlanta. Walt Weiss, the manager there, talking about the impact that Richardson might have on the base stealers there. Actually led to some chatter in the Discord wondering if Austin Riley could be this year's surprising guy that runs a lot more. And by sprint speed, Austin Riley is not the player you'd expect him to be, right? You'd think, oh yeah, Austin Riley, kind of just big power hitting third baseman, probably not a good runner, probably somewhere in the 20th percentile in sprint speed. Actually, 73rd percentile in sprint speed last year. We also know that sprint speed in and of itself is not the thing that necessarily leads you to more steals. It's more about the technique and the tendencies of your team and
the intent.
Who your first base coach is.
I mean, that's why we know that the team rates matter, is that there's intent there. There's like there's a desire. You know?
So I do like this idea that even if it's not as much on the extremes of like a Josh Naylor or a Juan Soto uptick in steals, that Riley goes from a guy that gets you 2 or 3 bags to maybe 8 or 10, right? I think that's kind of fun to add that element. So up and down that lineup, we could just see more guys getting a lot more aggressive this year in Atlanta.
I hate to rain on your parade, but the Braves have not seen an uptick in stolen base attempts this spring, and there was maybe there's some trends up here. Maybe they're still working their mojo there. The most stolen base attempts this spring, there's actually a fairly wide team spread already here in the top 10. Brewers have 18 attempts already. They've been successful 83% of the time with 15 success, so they are doing the right thing. The Rockies have tried 14 times, only successful 10. Their success rate is not good. The Cubs, 11. Pirates, 10. They've been successful on every single one. O'Neal Cruz is maybe going to steal 45, 50 bases this year. He already has 3 so far. The Astros have 10. The Twins have 10. They've only been successful 7 times, so that's not a great sign. Red Sox 9, Padres 9, Angels 9, Nationals 9. So the Nationals are tied for 5th most stolen base attempts so far this spring. I just wanted to point out that this is the way that you can change things quickly on a team. You come to the team and you say, we're going to coach things differently. Hey, we're on the fewest fastballs list. We're on the most stolen bases list. These are 2 lists that we weren't on before, and they are easily coached up. These are things that coaches do. So just changing the coaching staff and going to a more progressive coaching staff, you can see that the Nationals are trying to push the boundaries and do things differently in year 1. They're not waiting around and just going to spend this entire year saying, oh, we're just gathering information. No, from day 1, they're like, hey, at the very least, we can change the way we coach. We're going to bring in a bunch of 25-year-old coaches, it seems like. I mean, like, honestly, they're like 30, 35. But this is the youngest coaching staff in the big leagues, and they obviously have an idea about how they want to change things, and they've come in, they've already implemented it so far in the first week of spring training.
Yeah. You bring it back to Antoine real quick. Give him some time. Give him some time to work, because remember, the narrative last year too was with the Mets, because the Mets didn't run at all before. And it's not like they ran a ton last year. They were just crazy good at being successful, and that is the value. He is very good at making sure that when you do run, you are going to be safe, and so that takes a little time to spin up. It would be interesting to look at where were the Mets at this point last year, because they did improve. They improved in a big time last year. So I don't anticipate Antoine to be well, I guess I'm just ineffective now. I do think that is something that we're going to see. see change it. It looks like DVR has found something. Did you?
Oh yeah, very low. That's why I did the finger guns, because I felt like that was the most appropriate way to signal to you guys that I actually did something useful for once. 18 for 21 last spring for the Mets, so they were 24th in actual steals, and I think 21 attempts would put them second to last, ahead of only the Dodgers in terms of actual attempted
And they
steals.
ended up 6th.
Yeah,
As a
give
team, I
them
believe.
a spring to get everyone on
No, they
on the
ended
same
up
page.
5th. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say that's an improvement over the year. Or they bought in. There was buy-in when they were looking and watching Juan Soto be safe every time. Like, maybe
Maybe I could do that too.
Maybe I could sneak a couple in. Yeah.
The Brewers last year were 60 for 70 in the spring. They were 70 attempted stolen bases.
Insane,
successful 60
dude.
times.
They're doing it again, dude.
My nightmare. My nightmare. I hate those.
I think
teams.
a little bit more likely is that like Michael Harris, who was caught 6 times in 26 tries, becomes more efficient, and maybe he only steals like 24, 25 bags, but he does it by being caught less often. Ozzie Albies was very efficient, 14 for 17. Maybe he takes off a little bit more, but my personal number for Austin Riley, who was 2 for 3 last year, is more like maybe he'll be 4 for 5 this year. Like
I'm going for
I
8.
don't know.
I'm going to say 8 to 10.
I think,
Yeah.
I think 10, like, what I think is, what Antoine's good at is, like, the guys that are assumed and kind of given up on. Like, we can steal a bunch of, like, literally steal.
That's Soto, right? Yeah.
And
It's
that-
the
yeah,
Carlos Lee approach from several years ago. Like, Carlos Lee is one of the first players that sticks out in my head where you look at him and you're like, that guy's going to steal some bases, and he just picked his spots. He just knew there were some pitchers
Naylor,
that
like,
weren't even looking at him.
If you have any, like, no matter how many steals Naylor has, people he's never going to be treated like a dude who's going to steal all the time. He's just not going to. He's going to have 40 or 50 before people are like, this guy is going to steal easily, and I got to pay attention to him just because he's a first baseman, and he'll just shut it down and like make you feel like he's not even going to try at all for a game or two, and then the third game he's like, this pitcher sucks, and he just runs on him 3 times, and you're like, he's like, but that's savvy. So like, it's if you can find spots, and I think Austin Riley's a great caller because he is fast. He's got the Shea Langoliers random high sprint speed. By the way, guys, sprint speed, everyone at home. Like, there are guys that just don't even run hard, like ever.
Oh yeah, that's a whole Tommy Pham thing. If you read Pham graphs, no, the way that they do sprint speed is they look at your like top 10% of your runs, and so you'll look at some guys who have the same sprint speed, but Jose Altuve and somebody else, I forget who it is, have the same sprint speed, but Jose Altuve has like 10 bolts or 15 bolts, and the other guy has 0 bolts. That means definitively that Jose Altuve is faster, because his top end speed is faster. He just doesn't try as hard because he's a veteran and he's not going to run out every stupid little ground ball that has a 99.9% out rate. So the thing that's funny about sprint speed is it's a hustle stat.
Hustle.
Stat.
Good call. Mark
So you'll
Canha
just
always
have-
led us in or at least in sprints during when I was with the Mets. It's always Canha. He always ran it out.
Yeah.
I bet there's a strong correlation between sprint speeds in older players and guys who were captains of teams at younger ages, like back in high school.
Or contract years.
And contract years. But you're like, yeah, Mark Canha, always burning. Like, Mark Canha, probably a captain back in the day.
Johnny Hustle. He's Johnny Hustle.
Leading by example. Let's talk about a day in the life in spring training here, Trevor. Walk us through it. What's it like? Is it amazing? You got great weather. You get chances to play golf, lots of sunshine. Hey, I mean, you're a big leaguer. You're getting paid, so if it's not your first big league camp especially, you got a little money. What's a typical day like for someone who's not going through it for the first time?
It's well, first of all, there's we call it syllabus week at the beginning, where the pitchers and catchers report. So you go, you play catch, you like do PFPs, and then you leave. So you're like, you go out at like 9:30, and then you're done at 11, and it feels like you're getting ready the same way, like you're at home and you're getting ready to go to spring. And then everyone just meanders around for 2 hours and leaves at 1 usually, because they're like, what are we gonna do? And then you have like the afternoon. Vast majority of the time you have the afternoon, and that's when you get to go. It feels a little bit like I don't want to say vacation because you're exhausted, especially at the beginning. You're wearing cleats for 4 hours for the first time, so you're like, your feet are killing you, and you're just gonna go. I would go and take an hour and a half nap every single day because I was just gassed. And then most guys are getting out of there for a tea time. You hear tea times a lot. You're going out to lunch with some buddies or your family or whatever. But like it's a time for hobbies in the afternoon, and then there's it's nice weather. Arizona, if you can avoid the rain in Florida at 4. But most position players, if you are not veterans guys, if you are not playing, this varies from team to team, but if you're absolutely not going to play that day, you're off. You can just go. You can get treatment during the game and then get out of there in the 5th inning or so. Relievers, if you don't have any, most time it's based on service time. Relievers, if you're not pitching that day, like guys with the most service time, like can just leave at game time. Usually they get work in, they do a workout or something during the first few innings. So like 4th or 5th inning, if you see a bunch of guys leaving,
running.
Oh yeah, I've seen the exodus
in the outfield
before.
Yeah, some guys are running around the because they're just, I don't know why they feel the need to insert themselves. Sometimes they do that. But it's like go take care of your stuff. Some veteran guys are like, I'm gonna take advantage of this. I'm not in a hurry. Some guys are like, I got an early tea time and I'm gonna try to get in and get out. You can kind of plan your day. It's kind of nice. And then there's teams that are much younger that they're much more strict about staying for the whole game. Like guys who weren't who have never been in the big leagues, they're there for the whole game. Like watch the whole game, get the experience of being on a big league team. Because this is what it's going to be like the regular season. And then the veterans have earned the opportunity to we know you're doing what you need to do, so get out of here. And also clear out, because there's guys that are hurt or they need to learn the process or whatever, so we need the trainers for them and stuff. So you just kind of get out of the way. Because there's a lot of guys. There's just a lot of players. So, but it's very much like you meet, you throw, with the pitchers, like throwing together, and then you go through your circuit, whatever circuit is. Sometimes it's like, You see those silly rag ball, the rubber ball drills where they're practicing. They do competitions and they go shag BP at the end of the day for the hitters, and you do team defense as the games get going. And it's just it turns into what a normal day during the regular season looks like too, just in the morning, but with a lot more guys. And then once the game started, half the guys are leaving, half the guys are staying, and then as spring training starts to wind down, then everyone starts to stay longer, then you kind of work your way into it. But after, it's dinner, it's golf, it's in Florida, it was fishing, and it's hiking or going out into the desert and doing something, and there's fishing too in Arizona, but not a ton. And it's hobbies, and then it's going out to dinner. It's a lot of going out to dinner, a lot of watching movies in your Airbnb. It's not sexy.
In Tempe and the Angels, the way that the Angels situation is built up, the players, the veterans walk on the field out to. There's
to get out the gates.
Door.
You gotta go through. People see you leaving. It's
and
kind of jarring when you're not used to it.
The visual of that is as a fan, I'm like, ugh, all right.
Well, I get that on the field. Yeah, we try not to be really obvious about it either, because the guys are playing too. You don't want to be like, hey guys, bye.
Exactly.
Because everyone gets it. They're going to do it too when they can. But it just isn't it's an avoidable bad look that you just simply don't need to. But that's everyone's getting their work in.
If I was running a team, I would try to design it where they could take the back door and not everyone sees when everybody's
With the A's,
leaving.
we kind of snuck out the Twins, the door was the parking lot was you couldn't see us. We were just straight out.
I think that's better.
Yeah, much better.
One thing that also I was in Padres camp last year or the year before, the year that they went and played the Dodgers. They had the short spring because they had to they all had to get ready. It's a little bit like WBC spring, where everyone's trying to get ready a little bit faster this year. A lot of players are trying to be ready for WBC games, and so there was. But the thing I didn't understand was how much crap you guys do that has nothing to do with baseball specifically. I mean, I was trying to talk to PR and I was like, could I get this player or talk to this player? And they were like, I don't know, man. It is such a crap show. We had to do all of the Sony PlayStation like mocaps today, and like tomorrow is this, and like we normally have all these things that we have to do that are spread out over 4 weeks, and so it's not that big a deal, but we kind of have to fit it onto 2 weeks. So like the players are doing something extracurricular, as I would call it, almost every day. Now if it's spread out over 4 days or 4 weeks, it's not as big a deal, but what are some of those things that they have to do that aren't like obvious, like the mocap for the game? So you called something about media day. Is that where they take your picture and you have to smile, not smile, put the bat on your shoulder, put the glove up? How long does that take? And what sort of other extracurriculars that people don't know about?
So there's the media day is usually in the first like week where both teams are there. So they try to do it before games start, but like sometimes guys are just not available for whatever reason. They got a lot of work that day, and then they run out of time because they just don't want everyone to be there till 6 every day. But it's just a series of like stations and you have a little paper that says your name and your number on it, and you take the first picture there just for organization standpoint, and then you just go, and then take. Is
this where you say your name for pronunciation too?
Yeah, or you say your name for pronunciation, and then there's radio there, and then there's like a bunch of the local newspapers will be there. That's where they'll get their stock photos of you. Like that's where they get the headshots. There's the AP person who's like getting the headshots of everybody where you see on ESPN and you see, that's where they get the profile photos. So you get all those done. And the guys have fun with it. Like Jared Hughes would take a random crazy photo every single year and then try to make that and get a bunch of versions taken. But like the bigger the following, the bigger the market for the team, the more of these there are. So then you get into like, we're doing video game mocap, but they only want certain guys. Then they have you like go and be like, guys, welcome to whatever day for the season. So the PR team has a bunch of stuff. They want their stars to do it. Like Cal Raleigh's day could be, yeah. Cal
Sometimes
Raleigh's
they
day
have
could
to
be
say
awful.
stuff for the board so we can have you.
Yeah, like scoreboard videos and stuff.
Scoreboard videos.
Those games that they play where they like top 10 like country music artists go, and like that stuff that they do. Do they do that during spring?
Yes, they do that during spring. Vast majority of it's during spring. Sometimes they do it like right at the beginning of the year too, and you'll just knock some of it out. Or you'll do like special like interviews. But like there's all of that. So that anything they have planned already, let's just knock it all out in one go because it's impossible to get a guy to come back. It's just like they'll just put like tomorrow, because now they're getting in their routine, so that you don't know who has what every day. Starting pitchers, you don't know when they're pitching. Like it becomes a crapshoot fast. So that's what you're running into. Like they're like, we're trying to get these guys done because normal media day is done. But if you like play for the Yankees or play for the Dodgers, it's like there's like 1,000 stations. So it's like
does Fanatics or Tops have their hands in you?
Yeah, you go and you get the Tops guy who's gonna be for your card or for just the headshot card.
You have to sign some stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you can come in and there's memorabilia people in there. There's Fanatics people getting the people to sign, so you go back there and do that. They try to do that during like your fan fest. They try to get that done. But like whenever you have the players and they're all just kind of sitting around, you try to get them to knock a bunch of promo stuff out. But it could be a lot. And then there's like weird like stuff they're trying to. Sometimes they just pigeonhole like some of the medical stuff and like, hey, we're going to do a experimental scan on your body with this equipment also in the rotation that day. So like it's like admin day. It sucks. It sucks for most guys. I liked it a lot. Like one time I had a camera following me through media day, just to show what media day is like. But most of the time it's just you're doing the same photo over and over again from a bunch of different photographers from a bunch of like local newspapers. And then there'll be a radio. You can sit and do live radio. And then God forbid, Major League, the MLB, it's MLB day that day. And then they have their own production stuff. So they have a bunch of stations where guys can get and where you can go get interviewed by the staff for whatever shows there. And then you have to do the MLB.
Day that, like,
yeah, so it could be crazy. Like the big guys like Cal Raleigh, Julio for the Mariners, like Jaron Judge. Shohei's just like. Then just say there's an entire separate media day for the Japanese players. So like then they have to do all of that. So then they have to get all it planned. It can be crazy.
Does the team ever make you do events? After games, like in the afternoons.
Yes, there's always one or two, and they are hit or miss. A lot of guys like them. Sometimes you could go to a cool hotel. Your owner puts on a thing to like welcome everybody, and then like a lot of times there's not boosters. I don't know, investors or smoozers, or they're selling access to you.
Part owners or something.
That's happened a couple times. You're like, who are these people?
Owners.
And then so that gets icky sometimes. But then there's like, hey, owners will be like, hey, we got you a players staff only and players only excursion. It's always like a barbecue at a Top Golf. Or
bowling,
or it's
something like that.
Not even like they won't even do.
I heard one team
they don't want you to
had
lift. They don't want you to roll, and they get hurt.
Axe
one
throwing,
team had a
That's safer.
that kind of stuff. Like you go play darts, or you go to like a
Dave and Buster's
Lucky
or
Strike
something.
situation, or putt. There was like the Twins went to like a Tiger Woods putt and drink thing. So they're always like, "There's beer," and then all the players go. And then he won't care if I tell you guys about this propensity for Taylor Rogers, but he's a big Irish goodbye guy. Like he's a big Homer Simpson into the bush. Like
I love that, dude.
He does not
don't
want
draw it
anyone to
out,
notice he left.
Yeah.
Some
So
of my
he would
favorite
always,
people, actually.
he'd go for 45 minutes and then cap it and just leave.
I
And
love that, dude.
a lot
It's
of
so
time
much
that's what it
easier.
is. But a lot of guys like it. Like a lot of the young guys hang around because they were, they have been in the big leagues, whatever. So it's a little bit of that. It's supposed to be team building, but like the team's being built when we're at the field every day for 10 hours.
Right, we're gonna see these guys. One team I heard had all the coaches, or does this every year, has all the coaches do an eating contest, and the players end up like betting on it. Honestly,
Judging and betting.
judging. Yeah. So they're all like, "I got 5 on the guy from the DR."
The bullpen catchers, man. The bullpen catchers are legendary eaters.
The Twins have a great extracurricular event that's not the players. The players are the coaches, and they coach their wives in a softball game. And it's the Twins versus the Rays every year. And the Rays have been destroying them because the Rays have their entire infield. They all play D1 softball. So they're like a pro team. And I remember we were all confident because we had Jake Reed, and Jake Reed's wife was on the Olympic team, a center fielder. And so we're like, we have an Olympic center fielder, then we have my wife and left. So like, that ball ain't getting caught and it ain't getting thrown in very well either. And then we had Lindsey Buxton, who I think she played in high school, but she's a good athlete. Like she played first base because she was the biggest and the best at catching the ball. So we're like, yeah, we got a couple of players. Yeah. And then we just got destroyed. And we're like, oh my God, these girls could beat us. Like if we played them, it was just slow pitch and it was a lot of fun. But like that kind of stuff's great. All the guys go to that, even if they don't have anyone in the game. Like because we're all in the dugout, like cheering them on and like coaching them up. And it gets kind of heated. Anyone will tell you. But the Rays have been dominating for like but they don't have Brandon Lau anymore. She's the MVP every year. She's impressive. Everyone on the field was like, I would pay to watch this. I would pay to watch her play softball. Yeah, that kind of stuff's fun. You mentioned the eating contest. There's a talent show sometimes where like the rookies have to come up with the talent. Ryan O'Rourke did sewing one year. He Tyler Duffy sewed some pants.
That's pretty. I mean, that's a super helpful skill if you have it.
It was really funny. He's like, I sewed these pants. I don't know how else to present this. Trust me, I did it. And then he brought up his phone. It was all small. We could see it was like a photo of him doing it. Like so. and the judges thought it was hilarious, so then they just gave him the thing. But most of the time, this guy's rapping, like rapping or something. And it's just awful, and it's just one of those things. So yeah,
well,
there's some stuff that's fun, but.
I have one last leaderboard, and I in the context of all this, I just think it's funny because this is just notable stuff plus guys, and some of the guys are young guys like Carlos Laranje's on here. I'm surprised he only had a 108 stuff plus. He was nasty looking, but J.R. Ritchie's on here. This is the good side. The Tanner McDougal was sitting 100, in his outing, and he had a 106 stuff plus, but. Some of the guys on the other side that are worrisome are Carlos Estevez, Zach Gallen, like I said, 9 pitches, 82 stuff plus, Robbie Ray, 18, 85. And I just, in the context of what you're talking about, I can't imagine that I need to circle this Robbie Ray stuff plus number and say, this is worrisome. Robbie Ray's out there slapping ass and go and play golf afterwards, I feel like.
Well, yeah, there's that. And also, the longer you've been around, the less you care about spring training, or like the longer.
Yeah.
So like he's going out there, he could literally feel like he's lobbing the ball. Like he couldn't care less on how things are going. He's just like, let's go throw an inning and then be healthy when the inning's over. That's number one goal. I don't care what happens. And then go play golf. And then if it's March 23rd, now we're trying to see what we got. Yeah, that's when I would be worried about it. They're just, and then young guys are out there. Like you see a guy come up who's like maybe a prospect.
Yeah, LeGrand's trying to announce himself to everybody.
Yeah,
like,
they're going out there. They're
100.
trying to max out. They're like, look how good my offseason was. Look how in shape I am. And then 6 weeks later, you realize it's like, oh, I didn't need to do any of that. Like there's some guys who throw like a pen before they go to spring because they just know. They just know they're going to have a job, but they also know that like when they need to be the best is going to be later. And also they're old, so it's going to take them longer anyways. So they're not even going to be able to show that off at the beginning of spring anymore. It's not possible. So like
Gallen's
just lean
been
into
a
it.
notorious slow starter. He he ramps up for a while. So
some of these guys like don't even. John Lester would be like, I'm not even going to pitch till the third week of games, just because I don't have to
as long as possible.
Yeah, like he was just the way that he was. You know, he just throw like 4 lives, and then one to a minor league team when they show up, and then he would go into big league game because he doesn't have to. Like he doesn't need it to like get himself in the mental space. He knows that 3 or 4 is enough against big league talent. Not only that, the entire other team is a bunch of number 90s anyways at the beginning. All the veteran position players aren't playing very much. So, like, you're not even facing the guys that you would face.
If it's a home game, I've noticed, normally if you're on the road and you're a veteran, you will face their best pitchers, their best hitters at least maybe twice, if you or once if you're doing your inning. But I have noticed that, when they split squad or whatever, the guys who go on the road that's the other lineup. That's the kids.
The dream as a starter, well, starters can't do this as much. Relievers, this is the one benefit that relievers have. This is the best situation is, like, if you are a veteran reliever or a leverage guy, there is a very good chance you throw only home games for the whole spring because you have flexibility to do that. And it's literally like home away, home away, home away, or there's split squads.
If it's a split squad home game, then
so you always get the home game.
Facing some AA guys,
and that's where you get the A squad. The A squad's at home, and the B squad goes on the road most of the time. And that's why you see But then towards the end, guys need to get at bats. So like they'll send 2 or 3 of them. They'll go get their 3 at bats, and then they'll leave early from the away game.
Grumble about it. Yeah.
This is the way it is. But yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, I think the context of those individual pitching performances we talked about earlier is also important. I think both the Taj Bradley and Mick Abel starts we were referencing came against basically the A lineups of the Braves and Tigers. I think it was Taj against Atlanta and Abel faced the Tigers. I always look at that too. I'm like, who was actually in the lineup? Who was in the game when these guys pitched too? If you see 3 scoreless, 5 Ks, okay, was that the A team, the B team, or was it even coming in after the B team starters were coming out of the game? Because all of those scenarios are possible this time of year. We are going to go. A quick reminder on our way out the door. You can join our Discord with the link in the show description. We got some more team previews coming out here at the end of the week. Got the Red Sox, the Twins, and the Tigers all on tap for Friday. Eno is headed to Arizona. I am not far behind him. We've got a meetup Saturday, Eno, at the downtown Whiny Pig in Phoenix. More than one Whiny Pig, so important to note it's the downtown location.
It's also the Whining Pig, apparently, but
Whining Pig.
Yeah, but you would get it if you knew Whiny Pig. It's the Whining Pig downtown. We're gonna do sort of like a 6 to 8 thing. We got an early morning the next day, but it's open to anyone too. It's not a conference event. It's just that's where we're gonna be.
Yeah, just hanging out. So come join us if you're in the area. I'd love to meet up with you and talk a little baseball this weekend. That is gonna do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. Back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.